Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega for the IWGP US title. God damn, this is incredible. An incredible, beyond belief wrestling match.
This was one of the best matches I ever saw.
Yeah.
I got to say that.
Yeah.
I don't know where I would rank it in terms of greatest matches I ever saw, but it was definitely one of them. Somebody asked me, how did this compare to their match at the Dome? And the answer is, you can't really compare them because they were both... It would be like if you asked me, would you like a Wagyu ribeye or a Wagyu New York strip? I was like, I can't fucking answer that question.
Give me both.
Or if you said, how do they compare? Well, they're both different, but they're both fucking awesome. So anyway, yeah, I can't really say which one was better, but as far as like crowd reactions, I think that there were two spots in this match that because of the reaction they got from the crowd, one of them being when Will hit him with a V-trigger and then Will hit him with a one-winged angel and Kenny kicked out of his own finish at 1.
At 1?
I think that probably maybe bumped this past the Tokyo Dome match. But, like, I don't want to fight over it. If you thought the Tokyo Dome match was better, who gives a fuck? It's an opinion. But I thought this match was absolutely, absolutely incredible with two small, well, one was a big exception. I would say they were both kind of... Anyway, go through the match and I'll talk about the
Well, I think I know both what you're going to say.
Issues.
I want to talk about one first. I want to get it out of the way because I did just complain about it in the Willow Nightingale Tony Storm match, and there was a lot more interference in that one than there was. And that was like a 10-minute match with 5 minutes of interference. This Omega Ospreay match was like a 40-minute match with perhaps 2 minutes of interference at the most. But Don Callis was getting involved like crazy at the end, physically involved, grabbing guys and pulling them out of the ring and all that stuff, and passing Ospreay a weapon, the screwdriver, of course, to use. And it would have been irritating anyway, but there was a point about 10 minutes of this match, and not even that, like early, he trips Omega and got ejected. And then he just came back.
Yes.
That's dumb.
See, here's the deal. If he had never gotten ejected, and he was kind of getting involved, and then he slipped the screwdriver, and then, Will hits the screwdriver shot, and he does all that stuff, and then Kenny kicks out. I actually wouldn't have had a problem with it, because when shit like that happens and leads directly to a finish, I get mad. When shit like that happens, but it actually is only leading to a great near fall, and the finish is coming further down, it doesn't bother me as much, but... If WWE did the same thing, I'd be just as furious. You can't kick a guy out and then just have him come back. Like, you can't do that. There should have been some sort of explanation or, I don't know if this needed a ref bump, but, like, Callis cannot just come back. I mean, okay, fine. It's New Japan. They don't do disqualifications. Whatever. You got to at least try to eject the guy again. It was like he came back. The ref looked right at him, and the ref's like, nah, I'm busy. It's like, fuck, you sent the guy out 20 minutes. So that was irritating. But, like, I would have been really furious if Callis would have been ejected and then came back, and his interference and screwdriver directly led to the finish. Then it would have been like, bro, what's going on, okay? But it didn't. It actually led to a great near fall.
Yes.
The other thing that really, and it's I hesitate to say it's nobody's fault because, like, they actually did it, but that fucking...
Tiger Driver 91.
Which, by the way, Vinny, this guy landed on his head, and I was gravely concerned that he was seriously injured, and I tweeted about it, and these fuckers on my timeline were more concerned that I didn't properly identify it as a Tiger Driver 91, and they didn't give a fuck that the guy landed on his head. It was like, you must call it the right name. Like, fuck off, people. He got dropped on his head. And it was not like, sometimes there's an illusory nature of some of these head drops.
Yeah.
This was not anything like that.
No, his shoulders did not hit the mat. His arms and back did not hit the mat. His head, with his brain inside of it, hit the mat. And
not only that, like his head hit the mat, and then his body fell on his head.
Yes.
And I thought he was dead. Now, here's the thing. Kenny, it's one of those deals you hear in wrestling. Kenny is fine. Okay? He's told people he is fine. He's seemingly fine. But the thing is, a lot of people say they're fine, but they're not fine, okay? When Ricky Starks took that, he tried to flip over and he landed on his head.
Yeah.
He finished the match. He went backstage. He was mad about it, but he was fine. And then, later it turns out that he broke his neck. So if it were me, if it were my company, I don't care if you feel fine, you say you're fine, whatever. You got to go get your neck x-rayed because, that's the kind of thing where you could break your neck. And I hate to bring this up because it's horrible, but the other thing on Twitter was, he's fine, he's tough. This move's been used. Yeah, this move was used a lot in all of Japan. And eventually Misawa took a backdrop driver and died. He got internally decapitated.
Mm-hmm.
You know what that means? That means your neck was severed. Your spinal cord was severed inside your fucking neck, okay? So, it was not that one bump that
was years,
internally decapitated him.
Years and years of falling on his head.
It was taking Tiger Driver 91s and getting dropped on his head. And that's the issue. The issue is not the one bump that you get up from, and then you go to the back, and then, you move your head like this, and the doctor goes, it seems like that. That's not good for you, okay? So I think that he should get an x-ray. I think he should have his neck looked at to make sure that he is okay, because you cannot always trust that you're okay. You should probably be examined. Now, aside from those things, I mean, the work of both of these guys was absolutely incredible. I mean, it was one of the best matches I ever saw in terms of the story they told, the stuff that they did, what it like. There's doing matches, and then everything is looking so great, everything is looking so crisp. The pacing of this match, people always talk about all the moves, all the high spots. Dude, watch this match and watch how much of the match isn't moves.
Oh yeah.
Probably 65-70% of the match is not moves. It's the reaction to the move, the selling of the move, the setup in between moves, the playing to the crowd. I mean, the psychology in this match was incredible.
Storytelling, the psychology, the history,
the work, all of it. It was absolutely, unbelievably, and the crowd, I mean, the stuff that they did and the stuff they, the spots that they chose to kick out of, and, kicking out of that one-winged angel at 1. He could have kicked out at 2, but he kicked out at 1. And it made the match so much better. It got one of the biggest pops you'll ever see in an AEW ring, or any ring, when he kicked out of his own move at 1. I mean, I just thought this match, aside from getting dropped on his head and almost killed, and just the fact that Callis came back and was allowed back. Yes. I mean, taking those things out, I mean, this is up there as one of the greatest matches you'll ever see in your whole life.
So I mentioned that there was a lot of history in this one. One of those things, of course, was Omega Ospreay 1, where if you have not watched that match or haven't watched it recently, it's a very different Kenny Omega. He's a psycho killer Kenny Omega, more than a great athlete or wrestler or showman or any of that. He's trying to murder Will Ospreay with as much blood as possible. So this is Ospreay's chance for revenge at that. And, the big spot in that one was when when Ospreay went to the table and put a big hole in it. And Omega picks it up and does the Shining reference. Here's Kenny. So Ospreay wants his revenge. They're fighting outside, and Ospreay, they wanted so hard. They got the announce desk and that panel on top of it that's on top of it just for decoration. They were trying so hard to put Kenny's head through it, but it's too bendy. They tried 3 times. They slammed his head into this desk so hard it would not break. And finally, they leaned it up against the ring at an angle, slammed him through it. It still only bent. It didn't really break. But regardless, that was enough to.
You know what though? That's one of those things that just made this match so great to me, and that is that everybody watching this, everyone listening to this right now, I'm sure at some point in your life, you have pretended to bonk your head on something. Whether it's, you're walking with your kids and there's a street sign and you pretend, I banged into it or whatever. Everyone's done this. Maybe you've had a friend pretend to bang your head into something or whatever. Did you see what I did there if you were watching on video, by the way? I put my hand up because everybody knows when you're getting slammed into something, you hit your hand on it. You hit your hand. That's how you make the sound. That's how everybody in wrestling does it. But then there's Kenny, and he did not use his hand at all. What he did was, Will took his head and went to throw him in, and Kenny had both of his hands by his side, and he went in and he kind of put his shoulder into it, and he hit his shoulder. But it looked like he just got his face smashed really hard into this fucking table. And he did this 3 times, and every one of them looked so fucking great. It didn't matter to me that the table didn't break. It's like, I know how everybody does this spot because everybody does it the exact same way, and Kenny decided to do it a different way. It's kind of like when Ric Flair does the Flair flop. It's like he falls forward. If you do the Flair flop, you fall forward and you land on your shoulder. It looks like you land on your face if you're looking at the right angle, but you didn't. You landed on your shoulder. Kenny took these head slams into the table this exact same way. It looks so fucking great. And it was just, everything they did in this match was, here's a little extra salt and pepper to make it look a little better, a little crisper. I mean, God, they were fucking great. They were both so great in this match.
So, regardless, and I shouldn't say regardless, because you make a very good point, but Kenny goes into this table and he comes up bleeding. And as mentioned in the first match they had, Omega was the psycho killer, and Ospreay was the victim fighting for his life, essentially. Well, now the tables have turned, and this is Ospreay's chance for revenge. And he's working over the cut and beating him up and tearing him open. Then there's he gets blood in his arm. And he goes to the center of the ring. I swear to God that this is what I'm about to tell you. He stretched it out over 1 minute of great theater. And he stands in the center of the ring, and he looks up at his muscular left arm, and he flexes his bicep, and there's some of Kenny Omega's blood. And just standing there and standing there and standing there and looking at it, and he very slowly reaches up his arm to his face and sticks out his tongue just a little bit and just licks the blood just a little bit. And the whole building is chanting, "You sick fuck, you sick fuck, you sick fuck." And Will slowly turns to the camera and just almost winks and just says, "Yep." And he moves on.
Will was awesome in this match.
Also awesome, by the way. As I understand it, and I could be wrong, I've been wrong before, this is basically really an AEW show with New Japan talent and, of course, New Japan input of things. But the camera work on this show was amazing. And that's usually where New Japan outshines everyone in the world. There is a point where, it's right after this, in fact, where Ospreay has Omega draped across the ropes to hit the V-trigger. And he does Omega's taunt with the finger gun pose and all this. And the camera work they have of Omega's face against the ropes in the foreground, looking under his face at Ospreay in the background. It's art. It is just art. That's all it is. So we go from a slasher film to Ospreay's outside taunting the fans, and boy, these fans were taunting him. And oh, look, one of them has a Canadian flag. And Ospreay grabs that flag, and suddenly it's Brett and Shawn in Montreal before the finish.
Yes.
Because...
And actually, it was before even that. There's a little kid in the front row.
Yes.
And this kid starts yelling at Ospreay. So Ospreay goes and he starts cutting a promo on this kid. And this kid screams, "Shut up!" And the whole fucking building heard it, and they start cheering for this kid.
Yeah.
So then Ospreay sees the flag, and he grabs the flag. And first, he does the Shawn Michaels, super porky deal with the thing. And then he tries to stick it in his nose, but it won't stick in his nose. And so then he goes to a spot, and Kenny fucking hits him with his Larry. He takes a flip bump.
Yeah.
The flag goes flying. Kenny now grabs the flag, and even though it's a Canadian flag, now the fans are like, "You can use it as a weapon. We don't give a fuck." So he starts choking the shit out of Will with this flag, and he's hanging him with the flag. And then at the end, he takes a flag, and he gives it to the kid that told Ospreay to shut up.
Yeah, he doesn't give it to the flag owner. He gives it to the other kid.
He gave it to the kid.
Yeah.
It was fucking awesome.
Now, here's why what made all this so really, really, really great. If you're watching this, like if this was a 100% real fight, Kenny's comeback at this point would not have made a lot of sense. It was a weird time for that to happen. But it's what the crowd wanted to see right then. And the crowd is sick of Ospreay watching this, rubbing his crotch with this flag, rubbing the flag in his crotch. And Omega knows the crowd wants to see him make a comeback now. So, God damn it, it's time for the comeback because the crowd wants it. And he gave it to him. And obviously they're going to have the spot where Omega slammed Ospreay's face into the stairs and made him bleed. But they did that, and then Omega was immediately cut off and then went right back to the heat. And part of this feud has been Ospreay insulting Canadians. If you have not checked out Ospreay's videos on social media of his trip to Niagara Falls, go watch them. They're brilliant. But I want to say there's one. Well, actually, Brian, you can relate to this. He's got like the pink plastic poncho on, and they're on the boat that goes down by the falls, and it's 100-mile-an-hour winds, and he's sopping wet, and he's just miserable. So he's been.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Hating Canada for a while. So he cuts Omega off. He starts using the submission holds of famous Canadian wrestlers, Bret Hart sharpshooter, some of the guys crossface. He's inviting Kenny to chop him, but Kenny's just out of gas, and he can't. He's hitting chops. There's nothing behind him. So Ospreay is gonna mercy kill this fucker to end this. He goes to the Os Cutter. Omega does the most casual. That's not the right word. He's exhausted, but he takes half a step back. His head doesn't move. His arms are down by his sides. He's able to raise one knee and catch Ospreay in the back of the head with his last gasp. It's the best cutoff. We're 30 minutes in at this point. It's 30 minutes that has just absolutely flown by. They start going back with a few more big moves. Here's where Callis returns. Kenny even at one point stops his offense to point at Don, make it very clear everyone knows he's there. And we have the part where Omega hits the V trigger, but Don is grabbing Ospreay's arm, won't let him be pulled back to be pinned, and he passes Will the Screwdriver. Now, I complained about this earlier, because, again, shows like Forbidden Door, I don't want interference, but if you're going to do interference, get the absolute most out of it. Don passes this Screwdriver to Ospreay, and Ospreay's got it, but then he's grabbed from behind and hoisted into the air as Omega is going to go for the One-Winged Angel. So Omega is walking around the ring with Ospreay up on his shoulders, which means the whole goddamn world except Kenny Omega can see Ospreay hold up that screwdriver and stare at it. And he knows this is his chance. And fuck this guy, by the way. Omega tried to kill him in Japan, so he jabs Omega with that screwdriver. He follows with a hidden blade. He follows with a Stormbreaker. It would have been a, horrible finish, but it would have been a believable finish. But Omega just barely gets that foot on the ropes. They got the absolute most out of that screwdriver.
That was an incredible spot.
That was incredible. But then, and you've talked about it, what followed next was like the greatest thing I ever saw. Ospreay said, that's fine. He's finished. I'll pin him now. I'll hit his friend's finish, the Kamigoye of Ibushi. I'll hit him with his own One-Winged Angel, and I'll pin him in his home country. And he hits a perfect One-Winged Angel, and he hits that leg, and the referee counts 1. And Omega pops to his feet and explodes. Everyone is jumping up and down, going crazy. I don't know if I can call it a near fall, because he kicked out at 1. It wasn't that near, but that was like the best non-pin attempt I ever saw in my life. Omega's running wild. He's hitting all his big moves. They're going back and forth. Here is where the Stormbreaker and the Tiger Driver 91 occurred. I thought my neck was broken from watching this move. I screamed very loudly. And Omega did kick out of that, but he didn't kick out much longer. Ospreay hit one more hidden blade, one more Stormbreaker, got the win to win the U.S. title. Unbelievable match. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was an all-timer, dude. It was an all-timer. And again, I mean, I wish they would have had some sort of explanation for Callis coming back, because the actual spot that he was involved in led to that incredible near fall. I don't know if maybe you could have, instead of having him ejected, maybe had somebody, chase him off or something, or I don't know, but, the spot itself was absolutely incredible. And I wish he wouldn't have dropped him on his head. I mean, if he hadn't dropped him on his head, it would have still been one of the greatest matches I ever saw. And I actually probably would have liked it even better, because I wouldn't have been worried that somebody killed themselves. So, yeah, this was, I don't know what Dave will give it, but on a 5-star scale, it was 5 for sure. If you want to go up to 7, I'm sure it was probably 7. But, man, it was a goddamn fucking awesome match is what it was. And Granny, did you know that in the room right now is an Emmy Award winner?
I know. I want to congratulate you,
Wow.
Sean.
Thank you.
The only one here who's ever achieved anything of value.
Nice work, Shane.
Way to go, buddy. Let's see this big gold Emmy. Wow, look at that, everybody. Holy smokes.
That qualifies.
That's
Prefer to
pretty
hold it
heavy
by the
thing.
bottom to it as well.
Let's get a picture for the front page.
Yeah, like you want it. Granny, they say that Washington is a hotspot for UFOs. Is there any connection between aliens and Bigfoot?
The animals are aliens.
What?
So you're telling me that my cat is from another planet?
Yes. Due to Brian's birthday, Brian versus Jungle Boy. Jungle Boy looked a foot taller than Brian.
He's not a foot taller than me.
He does have the
God.
big poofy hair.
He's maybe. What is that noise?
This was with you and Vinny against Chris Drysack and Ideal
Mexican.
Mexican. Yeah.
Yes.
Brian pulled Chris's panties down in the back.
Yeah.
His panties.
Yeah, he saw his rice sack.
SAJWNGARRETT. SAJWNGARRETT. His name is Sean Garrett.
If you enjoy these videos, for just $7.99 per month, you can enjoy full-length editions of The Bryan and Vinny Show, Wrestling Observer Live, Figure 4 Daily with Tom Lawler and Lance Storm, the Mad Men Podcast, Speak Now Pro Wrestling with Denise Salcedo, and more, plus hundreds of archived shows, all in beautiful HD. Don't miss out. Join us today.